Are you just over your corporate career?
Or do you have a story that needs to be told but don't know where to start or put it together?
In today's episode, we have a chat with Christine Innes, founder of the Corporate Escapists magazine, where she brings you on a hero's journey from burnout to being the founder of a worldwide magazine.
Learn how you can own your story and walk the path of a hero.
Stay to the end to learn about Inspire Awards and how you can nominate your hero. Let's dive in. Welcome to Rewrite Your Story, the podcast where change begins with you.
We're your hosts, Stephen and Sharlene.
As professional coaches and mentors trained in various modalities, we have helped hundreds of people
Bridge the gap between the person they are
and the person they want to be.
We bring you conversations with real people who have overcome real setbacks.
You will walk away with practical steps to find more clarity, alignment, and success in any area you want to improve.
So join us and discover how you have the power to overcome, to change, and to rewrite your story.
So pick up the pen. Your new chapter starts now.
Well, today we're super excited, Sharlene. We've got Christine Innes on the call from sunny Queensland. I believe it's a bit hot up there.
Just a little. There's no more winter anymore.
So, Christine, why are stories so important and why is your whole business around stories?
Stories are made up into two different areas. First of all, you have to own your story to be able to rewrite your story. And it's a hard lesson that I needed to learn. I lost everything, but I was reminded today it wasn't everything. But in 2015, I was diagnosed with 2 life-changing illnesses. I then left a toxic, unfixable marriage, which is actually my second marriage. And then I also had to file for bankruptcy. And then the next couple of years I sort of spent in what I call my pity party, which is the poor me, the why me, everything's happening to me. But then I sort of got sick and tired of being sick and tired and sort of thought, okay, hang on, something's not happening here. And the way out of that was me owning everything. And that's the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And it wasn't until I owned it that I could actually rewrite my next chapter in my life. So I'm a big believer that if you want to change your life, own it. And it's your story. You don't need to go and share it with the world like I do or like other people do. The only person you need to own it to is yourself and stand in front of the mirror and just go, this is what's happened. I take responsibility for it. I own this, and it's hard because you don't want to own some of the bad things. You don't want to own the things that you've played a part in happening. But when you do that, you let go of the shame and guilt. So then you can then start creating this new life that you want. And that new life allows you to literally have blank pages for you to rewrite your story. So I truly believe that if you want to be successful in life or business, own it, because then you can rewrite it. And then you can learn how to then share that story in a way that really draws in your clients because you get to take them as a journey. It's like a fairy tale. You're showing them the bad stuff that happened, and not that I ever believe now that there's somebody on a white horse that's going to help me, and fix everything. But you're that person. You're the hero in the story. And so now I get to show people how to actually be the hero in their storytelling journey to attract their ideal clients.
That is so perfect. And, looking at the ownership of your story and how you owned it, while you were speaking, I actually wrote the hero's journey and then you mentioned the hero. So it really is a hero's journey when we go through anything in life and the building of resilience. But this has led you to 2 major successful areas in your life. One is the Corporate Escapism magazine, which is a magazine that is just touching thousands and features stories, but also the Inspire Awards, which is an awards that is popular in Australia and touches many lives in Australia and features many people. How did you do that all in 9 years? That's amazing.
Well, it's been 5 years really since I started the business. So like I said, the first 4 years was that pity party. And I think everybody needs that moment. I think, as human beings, we actually don't allow ourselves to feel. And that's feeling good or feeling crappy too, because emotions, like we're human beings, we have to have emotions. So I think actually having that time was probably the first turning point with it. And then it all started. I was decided I was going to be a life coach. And then I was going to networking meetings, trying to establish myself. And someone said, oh, I really love your story. Can I share it? And I must admit, the first time I did it, you can go back and look at the video, I am like pale white. I am sweating from every orifice that you could ever think of because I'm so nervous. And here I am sharing about my, my story. And then I had all these people reach out. And that's when I sort of knew, okay, there's something here. There's something that's, attracting these people. And then I turned that into a podcast. 2020 saw in a meditation magazines. And I thought, oh, this is hilarious. Like, that's not going to ever work. 4 years later, and now we're reaching 10 million people worldwide in the magazine. And we've done 4 #1 Amazon best-selling books, in-person events, and now the Inspire Awards. And I think that the biggest thing is going, well, why not? Why not me? And I lost everything. And I use that actually now as an advantage, going, well, I already know how to come back. So what really is the worst thing that can happen? And when you've been in a really vulnerable place, it's almost allowing yourself to go, okay, well, I'm not actually doing it for me anymore. I'm doing it for everybody else. So I actually remove myself from it all and going, well, how can I impact today? Who can I inspire today? What can I do to help somebody else? And when you remove yourself from it, it actually allows, I think, the more goodness from, like, I call it the universe, but whoever you believe in, like, to comes in and helps you spread that message.
Yeah, that's just amazing. You mentioned before, Christine, that you had gotten sick and tired of getting sick and tired during this whole season of having that pity party. What was that blinker, that pivoting point that turned from that self-pity to I've had enough, I want to change something?
I was actually very embarrassed because I was so attached to my corporate identity for such a long period of time that when people were asking me, well, what are you doing? I literally could not answer them. Like, I didn't have anything to say. And then I'm like going, well, I actually don't want that. I actually want to be really proud of where I am or, what I'm doing. And that sort of was one of the turning points. There were so many different things, but I'm never one for lost for words. But when somebody's asked me, that I hadn't seen for a while, well, what are you doing? And I couldn't put a sentence together, that sort of triggered something inside me going, oh, hang on a second. Like, normally you're the life of the party. Like, you can talk to anybody and you can't put a sentence together. What's going on? And that was sort of like just a few things that started to happen. And then I remembered a couple of conversations from my corporate career and just started to apply some general things. And then YouTube became my best friend, listening to stories. So stories changed my life. And that's why I love stories, because I was listening to all these other stories on YouTube from people going, wow, they've gone through that. Like, oh my goodness, well, maybe I just need a little bit of, healthy dose of inspiration and then I can do it as well. And that's all it really was. And I don't think there's just one thing. I think sometimes you've got to allow yourself to feel, because if you don't allow yourself to feel, you can't heal. And that's my biggest thing too. You've got to heal yourself, ready for you to take that next step.
It's so true. And there's so many people out there that just trying to avoid those hard feelings, aren't they? And they're not willing to address it because it's too scary, big and scary. And like, how do I even deal with those emotions? Like,
yes. Yeah. And sometimes we're not even used to the emotions because we're on autopilot for so much of our time. Like, I remember in like the corporate days, I would be driving to work and I could not even remember how I got there. Like, I don't remember the drive. And I sit there and I'm like going, wow, like I wasn't you're awake, like you're doing it, but you're just in the motion of it. So to actually go back, it was like being an infant again, like learning the actual feelings, like what was joy, what was happiness, what was sad, what was fear, like all those things. And once I started to learn to go, you know what, it's okay. And everyone says to me now, oh, you're a very emotional person. I'm like, oh, yes, that's my superpower now, because I get to feel things on such a deeper level. So then I can really empathize and, communicate with people on this huge, deep level because I can feel those emotions now.
Christine, you mentioned before, I know how to come back. And that ownership, what would you say to that person that wants to take ownership but doesn't know how to come back, doesn't know how to tell the story, or worse off, doesn't want to own the story.
Yeah. I think if you're denying yourself the opportunities, then that's the first thing is sometimes we get so comfortable with where we're at. Like it's the fear of the unknown. So what if I let go of shame and guilt? What if all of this? But the words what if are so powerful. So I change that to what is right now. Like what is working right now and what isn't working right now. And if you can focus on what is working right now, keep doing more and more of that. And if something's not working, then what could you change or even let go of? And that's probably the first step. And then one of the practices that I do all the time is I sit down and I visualize what is my ideal day? How do I want to wake up? Who do I want to spend time with? What are the conversations I want to have? Where do I want to be working? You know, all those amazing things that, you know, aren't always in my life right now, but I can see that because that allows me to be the better version of that person aspiring to what I want. And having, you know, just that visualization, that sort of connection to that, that was also one of the first steps that I did to be able to get out of my own way.
Yeah.
The Corporate Escapism. Tell us about your magazine.
Yeah, so the Corporate Escapists is all about, you know, people who are looking to not just escape corporate, but looking to design a life that they love. And we can all use these fun little terms and stuff like that. But, you know, if you think about it, like what's a day that you're going to wake up and live on purpose? So we share articles around 5 key different areas. We talk about body and health. We talk about spirituality. We talk about money, career, finances, and we talk about business. So those 5 key pillars allow people to really design a life that they love. And I don't believe it's about work balance because there's not really a balance. It's about you having all the different aspects to actually have that life that you are just waking up going, I'm really excited for today. Like what's going to happen? And if you can do that, whether you're working on corporate, whether you're working for yourself or you're, you know, just pursuing your dreams, that's really designing a life you love.
You know, the reason why I smiled and we both smiled is because that is our whole thing. You know, there's no such thing as work-life balance.
No.
It's seasons. There's seasons of intensity. There's seasons of relaxation, but don't try to squeeze it all into a 24-hour period because you're only going to cause yourself anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I removed the word perfection out of my vocabulary because it doesn't exist. I mean, everyone goes, oh, but it does. And I'm like going, well, does it really? I said, like, if you achieve a goal and you do it, you're always going to reflect back on there going, oh, maybe I could have done this differently. Or then you go, well, what's next? So if something was so perfect, you would be so content. But that's why, like, perfection doesn't exist. And I think if we can remove these sort of words that we're normalizing, you would literally feel so much more freer and just go, oh my God, I can actually breathe. I don't need to live, you know, how everyone's telling me how to do it. Absolutely.
And we so hear you because, you know, in the last 2 weeks, we've had a few clients come in, I just want work-life balance. I'm like, what is that? You know, like you go through seasons in life, you know, like everything's seasons. It's not a 24-hour, you know, and I think sometimes well, coaching has put up these ideals that are so stupid.
Yeah.
You know, like the wheel or the 24-hour wheel. I'm like, who invented that? Well, you know, though I'm not putting down the coaching profession, but I just think some of the concepts are a bit unrealistic and actually cause more anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the fact is that like every human being is so different. I mean, we all operate at our own optimal best. And that could be, you could be a morning person, you could be a nighttime person. I mean, I need a nanny nap in the afternoons and that's how I recharge myself. And that's okay. Like nobody is ever going to be able to work like in a box. You've actually got to design the box that works for you.
Oh, I love that. You've got to design the box that works for you.
Yes.
Like, people, audience, if you get anything, get that. That is so powerful.
I have to write that down myself.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And, you know, that just that one sentence has the ability to set so many people free because, you know, and that's what telling your story and rewriting your story is all about. Like you said, it's about owning the story reflecting on the story. Now, what do I do now? And creating that hero's journey. Next steps. Christine, looking back in the last 9 years, what are some of the non-negotiables that have helped you transform your life today?
Oh, I love this question. The first thing is core values. I lived and breathed core values in my corporate career, and I was living their core values. So when someone said to me, well, what are your values? I'm like, oh, this, this, and this. And they're like, are they really? Because you're not really living your life on purpose. So I think my non-negotiable is the values. I see values as a two-way street. So my own values, so my top one is authenticity. So I show up authentic. I will let people know when, I will show up still on camera without makeup. I will go to events, just in jeans, all that sort of stuff. That's who I am. And I have that then as sort of an expectation of how I work with people as well. I want you to show up authentic. And if you are showing up online one way and I meet you in person and you're completely different, then we're not aligned in that aspect. So yeah, definitely values. And the other one is that I give grace to myself. So to know that it's okay for me to make mistakes, I'm still a human being, and to really just reflect on that sort of journey and just go, okay, well, what is the lesson that you've learned from it? Maybe it wasn't a lesson that you wanted right then and then, but they never are. But yeah, it's, what can I learn from it? And the other biggest thing is that the only thing that I can change in the world is how I react to a situation or how I show up.
I think Sharlene was telling me today about the whole thing about someone not showing enough grace to themselves.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done for a lot of people. How did you learn that?
I was talking so badly to myself. I would stub my toe and I go, oh, you bloody idiot, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, hang on a second. I would go up to, if my friend did it, I'd be like, oh my God, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need some ice? Why am I not talking to myself like that? And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that I am so kind to everybody else, but I have been so unkind to myself. So when I even catch myself, and trust me, I will still be very unkind. I am the easiest to go down the rabbit hole and, have the negative voice sitting there and tell me all the things. But it's now just going, okay, well, what have you learned from that? How can you get back on track? These things happen, it's okay. It's I have to be my own cheerleader for myself. And it's not easy to do it. It's not a natural thing that we're ever taught to do at all.
Yeah.
So true.
It's so true, because you're told you're up yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Promote yourself, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. And here in Australia, we do not promote ourselves. I have clients in the States and they're like, oh my God, I did this, this, and this. I'm like, oh my God, I love that. How amazing. And then they're like, oh, what have you done? And I just sit there and, it's almost, because it's so unnatural for us to, sit there and promote ourselves. But if you're not your biggest cheerleader, then how are you going to allow others to cheer you on if you're not telling them what you've done?
Yeah. Do you think there's a big discrepancy between people's idea of self-promotion and arrogance? They kind of mix the two together or confuse the two?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's also in the masculine type energy that, a lot of people think, oh, well, look at her, or especially when it comes from a girl as such, in that female sort of aspect. But the way I see it now is going, you know what, I have worked goddamn hard for what I've done. Nothing has come easy or handed to me on a silver platter. I've done the work. So I am actually very proud of what I've done. And it's only been really in the last 2 years that I've felt really comfortable in sharing it. So it's still been a journey. But the biggest thing is I look back, and I think when everyone starts looking back of what they've achieved, then they can start realizing, going, oh my goodness, I've done that. Yes. Go ahead and, share it. And if people are not going to be your champions and they're going to think that you're arrogant or, you're up yourself or it's the ego taking on, they're not your tribe that you want. And just thank them for showing their true colors.
Love that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. As Australians, we do have that culture. Exactly. The tall poppy syndrome. And, whereas we, feel, you see it a lot on social media where I'm going to use, people that go to the gym, and the selfies in the mirror and this and that and that. And then you see other people, oh, he's just up themselves. He's on the steroids. And that's one classic example of, I call it the frog mentality. When the frogs are in the basket and one frog's trying to get out of the basket and the others are pulling it back in, and that is so ingrained in the Australian culture. And you're so right, whereas Americans, like we went to a conference in America just this time last year, and it totally changed our lives. And people were comfortable going on stage and telling their story and actually owning it and being proud. But sometimes when we tell our stories, we don't tell the full hero's journey.
No.
We tell the suffering, but we don't tell the victory.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're only telling half the story.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not, and sometimes it could be that we haven't healed properly yet, and so you still be. But if you're not able to do the hero's journey, you're still stuck in the victim mentality.
Yeah,
you're stuck in that, poor me, why me, in that area of that victim mentality. Like we all have it, but if you can't do the hero's journey, you're still stuck there. And that there's no shame, there's no guilt around that. There's no, no other reason that we've just got to be able to get you across the line to actually get you to recognize with it. Because a lot of people go, well, I haven't fully done it, or I haven't fully done all of this. I'm like, but who has fully done it?
It's a journey.
It's a journey. Like, let's share what you have done with it, because I think a lot of us go, oh, we have to have it complete, or it has to be perfect, or everything needs to be working right with it before we actually fully show up, and that's not the case.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's almost like that summit, it never really seems to exist, because like the moment you kind of get there, it's like you're still looking for more. You're not really there yet. Like you're still going. Like, how do we actually know when we've actually reached it? Because once you think you've reached it and you haven't really reached it, right? So what can we do to stop ourselves from like getting to that point where we're constantly chasing that end, that summit?
Oh, I love that. I think a lot of it is that we don't celebrate the small wins. Like we're constantly waiting for the big project to be over. So if you think about like the summit, like you're going to celebrate once you get down, but what if the part of the journey was that you got yourself healthier to be able to take the first 100 meters, and then, oh my goodness, I'm halfway up, like good job, like I'm up the top. Okay, now we're going to come back down. Like, there's all these little milestones that we've actually got to learn to celebrate and not just wait for the big, huge hurrah. Because once that happens, it's like, oh, is that it? Next project, here we go. So let's start celebrating the smaller little wins that, even if it is you just getting out of bed today, if you just get out of bed today, that is a win. And we should celebrate that.
Absolutely love that. Like we so often take it for granted, just those small little achievements that we make, and we think, oh, it's just so mundane or just so ordinary. Anyone can do that. But we don't think everyone's different. Like everyone has a different story. Like sometimes people have a lot of struggle just getting out of bed. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's days like I have, a chronic illness, and there's days where I'm like, oh my goodness, my body's screaming at me, and I'm like, okay, that's right. Like, we're just going to get out of bed today. We're going to have a shower. We're going to, just see what needs to be done. And if that means I'm working from my laptop in bed, then that's okay. Like, I don't, it's learning, like you're saying, like giving grace to yourself. It's just going, okay, you did this today. Fantastic. You've shown up. You've done what you needed to do, because we can't conquer the world in one day. It's like, it's tiny little things that you've got to do to be able to get there.
Yeah. And totally understand, because, when I was first diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and I get it, like there are days we had made plans and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't even walk because of the pain, and especially when you're going through a flare-up. And so I had to learn the phrase, for me, it just is. I couldn't attach meaning to the days I was experiencing. And I'm so grateful that Sharlene, and still to this day, like, You know, there are days where I have to cancel plans and I have to do things because, you know, my hips won't move or things like that. And I just have to use the phrase, it just is.
Yeah.
And that allows the grace. So thank you for sharing that and giving people permission. You know, I think sometimes as life coaches and as counselors and business coaches, you know, we go down this rabbit hole that we're going to try this diet, this supplement, and we're going to get better. And we don't actually work with our body just to take the rest we need.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago and we're talking about, like, because I think a lot of what I went through was a type of burnout after I left corporate. And then you go and start a business. But if you don't what caused the burnout and you go and start a business, you're literally going to have burnout in it because there's a lot more pressure with it. So if you're not unlearning those behaviors or unlearning the triggers, all of those different things, then you're actually still going to allow all of those things in it. So I know what my triggers are for my asthma, and I'm really conscious about that now. I have endometriosis and PCOS. So, you know, there's times where I'm like going, okay, I'm in pain. My body's, you know, like having a flare up. Like, okay, what do I need to do? You know, what can I do for my body to actually nourish it? Because if I don't nourish it now, it means, especially with my asthma, I'll be in hospital for a week. And that's, you know, then there's 2 more weeks after that of even more healing. So I think sometimes, like, if you can really work out what your triggers are or sort of try and actually be in tune with it and listen to your body more and not downplay it. Like, if your body's telling you you're tired, have a nap, take it easy today. It's okay. Your to-do list is still going to be there. It's not going anywhere.
You mentioned before you celebrate small wins. And, you know, I don't want to not give you the due time to explain to us the Inspire Awards and how not only do you celebrate your wins, but you celebrate greatness around Australia. What gave you the idea to be the because you founded the Inspire Awards? Take us on that journey.
So the inkling sort of came last year, and I said to people, oh, you know, there's a lot of awards out there, and a lot of them are talking about, you know, women in business, men in business, you've got to earn this amount of money. You know, there was a whole heap of different things with that. I'm like, oh, no, why don't we just inspire each other? Like, why can't we just do that? And I sort of let it go because I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this. So, you know, like, it still hits me. And then I think it was end of July, June, my coach said to me, are you ready for a challenge? And I'm like, okay, no worries. And he didn't know that I'd started this. And he goes, are you ready to have an award? So I'm like, okay. So in the last 5 weeks, literally have created a landing page. We've gotten the judges on board. We've got an MC for the event. We've got 17 nominations happened already. And just showing people that who inspires you? And it's just a simple question because there's so many people that inspire us along either our personal journey, our wellness journey, our business journey. And we don't give recognition to those people as well. So that's what these awards are all about, is to recognize those who are change makers. They are literally changing lives by, it could be a piece of advice. It could be, you know, just the work that they're doing within the community. And we want to recognize them. So we've got 8 amazing categories that people can go ahead and nominate. And we've done it in a way where it's not about race. It's not about, I shouldn't say age because we do have a youth award, but it's not about gender. Like, everyone's going to be treated equally in that. But what we want to hear is, what is your why? Why are you doing it? And it comes back to the stories. You know, what's the passion? What's the purpose? What's the mission? And share that with us. And then we want to be able to highlight them at the awards that's happening here on the Gold Coast in December.
If people want to nominate someone or they want to find out more, can you give us a bit of an overview of what the 8 categories are? Do you have them off?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the first one is our community champions. So those ones there are basically for people, you know, working in the community tirelessly. You know, they're making great contributions. We then got the innovation leader. So they're people who are driving innovation and technological advancements. I should have really chosen some of these words that are really easier to say as well. well. Then we've got our youth inspiration. So these are young individuals under 25 that are really, demonstrating great leadership and initiative as well. Healthcare heroes, so people out there doing epic things like our nurses, our doctors, our volunteers at our hospitals. There's so many people there. We've got environmental advocates. So these are people who are really making that positive impact on the environment. There's educational excellence. So if we talk about our teachers, what about even the admin people who work in there, people who are tutors, anybody there is really helping to make a difference for people in that education space. We've got our arts and culture. So people who are creating this, for me, like arts and culture is amazing because it can really change somebody's life if you think of art therapy and stuff like that. And then you've got your influential business leaders as well. So they're the people that are really, doing the entrepreneurial spirit, but they're doing it in a positive impact on society.
Do you have a website that our audience can go to?
Yeah. So if you go to thecorporateescapists.com and then you click on the Inspire Awards, it will have all the details there.
Awesome. Now, Christine, as we close up, what are some advice that you would give to someone that's like, Christine, you've done so much in the last 9 years, but it's not me. You don't know what I've gone through. And that's good for you, Christine, but you don't know me. What would be your one piece of advice that you would give them?
I'm not you. And that's the best piece of advice, is that we're all human beings. We're all here on a very own personal journey. And you've just got to give that love and grace to yourself and find your own pathway. It might not be my pathway that you want to follow. It could be somebody else's completely different. But it's what it is you carve that own pathway out for yourself.
That's so awesome. Christine, one of the things that I usually like to ask at the end of an episode is, if you were to go back and rewrite the way you lived your life, rewrite your life story, what would that look like now?
I wouldn't change anything, because everything that's happened to me has made me who I am today. And I actually really like who I am. I'm really learning to like and actually fall in love with who I am. So I wouldn't change anything at all. It's got to me where I am today.
So inspiring. Thank you so much, Christine.
And if you want to know more about Christine, make sure you head to thecorporateescapists.com, where you can download an issue of the magazine, as well as find out more about the awards and a little bit more about Christine. Christine, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewrite Your Story podcast.
We hope you found this episode enlightening.
For more information on the topics discussed, please visit our website at stephenandsharlene.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, share it with your friends, and follow us on social media at Stephen and Sharlene.
Until next time, stay informed and inspired.
This is Stephen and Sharlene signing off from the Rewrite Your Story podcast. Thank you and stay blessed.